Hi guys, welcome to Web Design Tips Plus. My name is Neil Pearce, and in this screencast we're going to open up Photoshop and we're going to learn how to create this nice retro looking web page. Let's take it from the top then. We're going to learn how to create this nice ribbon effect. Then we're going to be applying some nice subtle effects as well, like the letterpress effect that we've got going on for the stars, social icons and the buttons for the menu. Scrolling down then we've got this nice bold banner. Of course this banner can be turned into an image slider just by adding a left and right arrows or some little dots underneath. Underneath that we've got a nice about us and services section, a little bit about us and what we offer. We're going to learn how to create this nice round stitch effect, and as well as using the custom shape tools we're going to add in the icons here for the services. So we're going to be making good use of Photoshop here. Underneath that then we've got a nice bold and clear contact form and a little bit about what we're up to. Finished off with a nice slimline footer. As you can see, we've got some nice textures we're going to be using throughout the design, especially for our background, and we've got two up here for the menu and for the logo. Now these textures or these patterns are supplied in the source files. If you download those now, we'll define those in a moment. You'll also notice as well we've got a couple of nice retro looking fonts. One's called Bazaar, one's called Anchorjack. And we're going to be looking at where we can download those for free. And I'm going to assume that you know your way around Photoshop. Not going to be discussing the layers palette or the tools bar or the options bar. So we can zoom through this at a decent pace. Over to the layers palette, you'll notice I've grouped everything nicely as well, named them appropriately, which is very nice. If you come to develop this in a couple of weeks time, then you know exactly what's what. Or if you hand this over to a developer as well, they're going to love you forever. So going to be making sure we keep our layers palette nice and organized. We're also going to be using the 960 grid system. If you don't know what that is, then this allows us to make sure that everything is within a 960 pixel wide container. So when we do come to develop this, we're not forcing our users to horizontal scroll on a small monitor. Let's just make sure that this is viewable on all monitors. So next up then, if you download them source files, if you open up the folder, unzip it, open it up, and you'll be given, we'll have given you the social icons as well as the banner, the main banner there, so you can get up and running on this straight away. But I will show you really where you can get these icons from. And while we're here, we'll just define these patterns quickly. So if you open up the green pattern or any one, open up a Photoshop, right click, open it up, and we need to define this pattern. So if we go up to edit, down to define pattern, and define that name it's given, so green pattern.ping. Okay, that I've already got that in my pattern picker. Once you've defined one, just make sure it's in there by clicking the paint bucket tool, changing the foreground to pattern at the top in the options bar, open up your pattern picker, and there is my 4 that I defined earlier on down here. If you hover over that pattern, you'll notice it gives you the name of it and the size, so make sure that is the one or the ones that you've defined. So they're all in there. Next up is to download our fonts. So if you open up your web browser, if you go to a website called dafont.com, in search field, search for a font called Anchorjack, search that, and there it is. You can download that there. Then head over to a website called abstractfonts.com. If you search for a font called Bazaar, B-A-Z-A-R, and there's only one there called Bazaar Medium, so download that there. Put them into your font folder on your system. May need to restart Photoshop again, to be aware of that. Then head over to 960.gs website and click the big old download button to download the 960 grid system. Once that's downloaded, unzip that folder and you'll have a folder called Nathan Smith 960 grid system. You just double click into that, open that up, then open up the templates folder. Then we're going to be using Photoshop, of course, so we need to open that up and then choose the 960 grid 16 column grid. They've got 12, 16 or 24. we're going to choose a 16 column, so open up 16 column grid, and you straight away notice that we need to increase the size of our document. So we can do that quite easily by going up to image, down to canvas size, and change the width to 1200 and the height to 2300. Okay, that. Then if you're going to be wanting to use the red columns, sometimes people do, I'll use the green guides, but if you want to use this, we need to unlock this layer. So you can do that quite easily by clicking and dragging down the lock into the bin. With that layer selected, then Control T to bring up the transform tool, hold down the Alt key, just click and drag up, and that should do both top and bottom. Drag that right up to the top, so that's available for both the top and bottom. Increase your document size, but Control plus on your keyboard, 100%. And there we have our size sorted. Now we don't want to be called 960 grid, so to save this as what we want to call it, so go up to File, down to Save As, and we'll save this as Retro Tut. Okay, retro_tut on your desktop. So what we're going to do now then is to give this our background pattern, this green pattern. Now, as you've noticed, in our layers palette we've got our background layer already in there, so we need to unlock that quickly because we're going to be using that. So unlock that, and then right click on there, bring up the layer styles, and then we're going to give it a pattern overlay. Click pattern overlay, open up your pattern picker, and then select the green pattern that we've defined earlier on. Okay, that, and then we have our background all sorted. What we're going to do then is, because we don't know exactly how high this section will be when we're starting off, even though we've got this to work on, we wouldn't know that from the start, would we? So what we're going to do, we're going to create this first top bit, this top bit first, then we're going to concentrate on our other background bits later. Alright, so the first thing then is to create this menu bar, which is the hardest bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to use our guides. So bring back our guides, Control H, and select the move tool, and we're going to drag a guide down to about here, and then another one about here, about 60 pixels high, 50-60 pixels high. Then we're going to drag another one from the left, and we're going to position that in between these two, and we're going to do the same on the right hand side, and then we're going to click and drag a guide right down into the center of them to there. It's roughly about center. Then increase our document size, Control plus, so we can see what we're doing a bit better. Then we're going to change our foreground to this color, BA4B3C. BA4B3C. Then with the pen tool selected, make sure that shape layers is selected in the options bar at the top here, not pass but shape layers. And what it'll do then is when you click and drag out shape, that will create a new layer at the top there above our background and our layers palette. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to make a point here, then we're going to use this guide that we dragged out in between there and click in the middle of that, then again there. Then we're going to go right over the other side, bring in our document to see what we're doing. Now hold down the shift key will make it go nice and straight. Go right to the end, and it's going to bring up again. Then we're going to select there again, then we're going to bring that back down to 100%. Then we're going to go right to the other side, holding down the shift key again, and finish off at the end there. Highlight guides, and then just drag that up there. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to give it some layer styles now. Actually, we're going to rename this in our layers palette first. I'm going to call this menu top. Then we're going to right click on our layer to bring up the layer styles. And the first thing we're going to want to do is to give this a pattern overlay. So click pattern overlay. I'm going to change the blend mode to overlay. We're going to turn the opacity down to 60%. We're going to choose a pattern, so open up your pattern picker, and we're going to choose our menu, which is this one here. Don't click anywhere, just click away from that, so close that pattern picker. Then we're going to change the scale of this down to 60% as well. So it's just a nice subtle pattern there. So next up then we'll give it a gradient overlay, so click the gradient overlay. Gonna change the blend mode to overlay again. Then we're gonna give this a actually no, we'll change the blend mode to soft light, sorry, because what that'll do, that'll bring out the whole colour. Turn the opacity down to about 30%. So you can still see the pattern there, and then open up your gradient editor by clicking that box there. Then we're going to add 2 more colour stops. These are colour stops, these look houses. So if you add one about here and one at the end there, actually drag that one a little bit more in. Leave this one's black, but open up this one and change this to 808080. This is just a light grey colour. Then this one will be B2, B2, B2. And this one will be 4C, 4C, 4C. Okay, that. And that just gives that a nice subtle gradient. And also be aware that the angle is set to 90 degrees. And everything else left alone. And then next up will be a inner glow. So go up to inner glow. We're going to change the blend mode to overlay. We're going to bring down the opacity to 30%. And then we're going to give it a colour of white. Excellent. And then leave the choke alone and bring the size down to about 3 or 4. And that's it. Then last but not least, we'll give it a drop shadow. We'll leave the blend mode and the colour to black, but we turn the opacity down to 30%. 30% seems to be the magic number. Distance to the distance to 2, 0, and 3. That's about right. So okay, that, as you see, it's got some nice subtle effects on that now. Then what we're going to do now is to add in the background, the second one. So we can do that very easily by clicking, dragging a new copy of this, making a copy of this by clicking and dragging it into the new layer icon. Drag that underneath that one and rename this menu bottom. Then we're going to Control T on your keyboard to bring up the transform tool. Hold down the Alt key. We're just going to click and drag that up, and then we're going to click and drag them in to about level with the inside of the indent. I think that's about right. Then we're going to make this a little bit darker, so bring up the layer styles. We're going to keep it as it is before, but just going to give it a color overlay, and we're going to make sure it's black, and we're going to bring the opacity down to about 15%. Okay, and there we have our menu background. That is, what we need to do now is to add in our buttons and our stitch. We'll do the stitch first. And so above this, then above the menu top, make sure that's selected. We're gonna, there's several ways you can create stitching, but the easiest way I find is to use the horizontal type tool. So with the horizontal type tool selected with Bazaar as our font, we're going to decrease the font size down to 11, and then we're going to give it a color of black, and make sure that layer is selected. I'm just going to click in there, and then using the minus key on a keyboard and type out loads of stitches. Perhaps we'll go about halfway and we'll stop, because what we're going to do, we're going to open up our character set. So go to Window, down to Character, and then we're going to change the tracking on this. Now underneath here, the auto is the tracking. Just need to click and drag that up to about 460. And as you can see straight away, I need to delete some of these. So open up your layers palette again, double click on that, and then just delete them down. I think we're not going to add one more. Then we'll just shift that across using our move tool. Press V on your keyboard, select the move tool, a hotkey there. Let's use our arrows just to push that over. I think that's positioned perfect. Now we're going to give us some layer styles. So I open up the layers styles on that, and then we'll need to give it a color overlay. So select color overlay, change the blend mode to soft light, and change the color to white. Then we're going to give it a drop shadow. Select drop shadow, change blend mode to overlay, and then turn the opacity down to about 70%, not much difference. And then angle, make sure that's set to 90. And then we're going to do the distance at 1, 0, 1. Okay, then what we're going to do, we're going to go up to our layers palette, up into the fill, and turn it right down to 0. And that brings it up really nicely, doesn't it? See, it looks like a nice stitching effect. Very cool. So with that layer selected, then with the move tool, we're just going to hold down the Alt key on a keyboard. When you do that, you see the cursor change from a black and white arrows. Once you've got that held down, just click and drag that down to make an exact copy and position it at the bottom. Superb. There we have. Now, like I said, just keep our layers palette nice and grouped. So with those two stitch and layers selected, Control G on the keyboard to group those together, and call this group stitching or stitches. Then we'll group them all together with the stitcher group and the menu top and menu bottom. Control G on the keyboard, and we'll just call this menu or navigation, whatever you want to call it. Let's get my spelling right. So now we can just click and drag that and position it wherever we want. Bring back our guides. Okay, so next up then will be to add in our what should we do? So we do the logo. Yeah, we'll do the logo. So with that background layer selected, then let's create a circle. So choose the ellipse tool. Make sure that shape layers are selected in the options bar at the top here. Then change the foreground color to a color of 519994. 51, 3 9s and 4. Then make sure the menu group is selected in there. Then when we drag out our shape, that would be positioned above that. Now, as we used layer styles last time, we need to turn them off in the options bar, otherwise that give us all the layer styles for this menu. So up here in the options bar, just make sure that style is turned off. Then click and drag a circle, holding down the shift key. We can use our space bar, so hold down the space bar, and we can then drag that around and position it where we want it to be. And looks good to me. But then I'm going to bring back my guides to make sure that's spot on in the middle, and that's near enough. These three here that I've used really for the centering, and you can see I'm not far off, so I'll leave that. Actually, I might shift that over slightly to the right. The move tool selected, then just use my arrows, going to position that about there. Great stuff. Now we're going to give this some layer styles. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I think it's a little bit too big. So Control T, I'm just going to bring that down a little bit to about there. Okay. Right, happy with that. So with with this layer selected, just bring up our layer styles. And what we're going to do, we're going to give this a pattern overlay. So click pattern overlay. We're going to change the blend mode to soft light. And then we're going to turn the opacity down to about 20%. Then we're going to find our pattern that we defined earlier, our logo pattern. It's this one here. Click away from that. And then we're going to add a drop shadow. Make sure that blend mode's all the same. Just going to turn the opacity down to about 20% and do 204, and make sure the angle is set to 120, which it is. That's good to me, so OK that. Next up then, we're going to add another circle inside this, so we'll just copy this layer by dragging it into the new layer icon and holding down Control T, and hold down the Alt key and the Shift key. We're going to click and drag that down to about there. OK that. Then we want to give it some styles. So open up the styles on that. Make sure this is called inner logo. We'll call it inner section, and we'll call this one base. So open up the layer styles on that, and what we need to do, give this a nice gradient. Turn off the drop shadow for a start. Give it a nice gradient. Open up your gradient editor, and we're going to give it the same gradient as we did as our menu. So we can click another color stop there, and one at the end here. Leave that as black. Open this one. Make sure it's 808080. Oops. This one is B2, B2, B2. And this last one is 4C, 4C, 4C. Okay. So what we want to do now though is to change the blend mode to this. We'll change that to soft light again. And what that'll do, that'll bring out that background color or background texture right shining through. Then we're going to turn the opacity down to about 35%. And lastly, you want to give this a nice inner shadow. That'll give it a nice ring around there. So click inner shadow, turn the angle to 90%, or 90 degrees, sorry. We're going to turn down the opacity to about 5%, very small. We'll do 6%, and we'll do that as the distance is 3, 0, 2. In fact, you might need to. No, I like that. Okay, so that's that done. But one more thing to do with our base. So open up our styles on our base, and all we need to do is give this a color overlay of white, and we'll turn the blend mode to overlay, and we'll turn the opacity right down to about 10%. Excellent, so that looks good to me. Looking at our final design then, this probably needs to come down a little bit more, be a bit more smaller. We can do that, we'll just group those together though, just group them together, call it logo. Then what we can do, we can Control T on the keyboard and then hold down the Shift key, just drag that down and just position that central again. Okay, that's about right. Next up then, to add in our button text. We'll do that inside the menu group, so open it up, select menu top, and open up our horizontal type tool. Change the foreground to white. Bazaar will be our font, and then we'll change the size to 22 pixels. Just drag that up actually to 22. and then holding down our shift, or put the caps lock on, because if you don't, that will, for some reason, if you just type out, that changes the font. It's a bit of a pain in the bum. So with this caps lock down, that Bazaar seems to kick in okay. Don't know if you had the same problem, but we'll type in home. Need to change the tracking on that. It's still set to what we had before, so bring that down to 0. I think it's okay. Then we want to position that about there. Then on the copy of that, just click and drag across like we did before with the Alt key down. Hold down the Shift key to make it nice and level, horizontal. And then I'm going to change the home to about. And then level 1 to portfolio. Just position them free, make sure they're aligned properly, so select them all, select the move tool and go up to your aligned options up here. Let's click the align vertical centers and then distribute horizontal centers. Make sure they're nicely, in fact it always does that, it always seems to be a big gap, so I'm going to bring in home button a bit more. Seems to be about right. Okay, so we're going to add 3 more the other side, which is portfolio, blog, contact, but I've done portfolio there, so it doesn't matter. Portfolio, blog, contact, and then about that there. So change the about to services. And it doesn't have to be exactly that, but that'll bug me if it's not. And then the last one to contact. With those last 3 selected then in the layers palette, let's make sure they're aligned. And yeah, it should be about right. So I'll bring that in slightly more. And then do that again, make sure they're distributed nicely. And we'll do that to the first 3. Okay, that looks good to me. Now we need to add some layer styles to these buttons. We'll do the leave the home button, because the home button is going to be a hover state. We'll do that last. Add some styles to the about button first. So open the styles on that. We're going to give this a inner shadow. So click that. We're going to change the blend mode to linear burn. Let's leave it black, and we'll turn the opacity down to 35%, angle at 90, and we'll do 1, 0, 1. All it does, it gives that a nice subtle inner look. Excellent. We'll do the same for the rest of those, and we can do that quite easily by right click on the FX icon in the layers palette here. Right click that and just copy layer styles. Then just select all the rest of the buttons, and then right click again and then paste layer styles. That does them all. And then our home button, we'll open up styles on that. We need to give this a color overlay of 9, 9 and all the 3s. It's a nice dark red color. Then we're going to give it a nice inner look, inner shadow. So select inner shadow, change that to linear burn, 35%. I think it's the same styles as the other ones. The only difference is we're going to give this a drop shadow of white. So look at that inner look there. So click the drop shadow, change the blend mode to overlay, turn that to color to white, change the color to white, and we'll just go 1, 0, 0. That just gives that a nice inner press effect, the letter press effect. And that's our menu buttons done. So what we're going to do then is to group these together. So with all them selected, group them together, Control G, and just call these menu buttons, BTNs. Doesn't matter if caps are still on. And then that's the whole menu button or menu bar grouped nicely. Then we're going to finish off our logo now, so make sure that inner section layer is selected, and with the horizontal type tool selected, we're going to choose anchor jack. I'm going to set the font size to 49 pixels. Make sure it's set to white. Then we're just going to type in WD. Control T on the keyboard just to skew with that a bit, and then move that down into the middle. Then we're going to open up our custom shape tool. Okay, so it's U on your keyboard. That's inside all those shapes. Open up your shape picker, and then we're going to locate a little star, which is there, this one here. Make sure foreground set to white, and that's going to drag out the shape layer selected as well, top here in the options bar. Just hold down the shift key and just drag out a star there. Then we're going to give it a inner look, so open up your layer styles. We'll just give that an inner shadow. We'll leave that as it is. Turn that down to about 30%, 35%, and then do 101. Actually bring it up to about 50%. And let's change that actually to 2. It doesn't look right. 2. Okay, yes, 202. Okay, that. Then just make a copy of that again. Hold down the Alt key and the Shift. Make sure the Shift key is down because that will make it nice and straight. If you don't, then you just drag it over like that. So the whole Shift key held down in the Alt key, you're making it nice and keeping it aligned nicely. With them two selected, you might need to shift them over slightly. Bring back your guides, and we'll go by that centre line there. And might need to move our WD text over a little bit more as well. Okay, looks good to me. That's our menu bar done. Next up, we'll add in our social icons. In fact, no, we won't. We'll leave that till last. What we'll do, we'll get on with the bits that go underneath, which is the welcome title and our banner. We'll do these last because that way, when we do these, once we get these done, we can just slip those into the footer. Super. Okay, so